Welcome to the Leadership in Land podcast, where we talk about what actually moves the needle in the land business. This show isn't about getting rich or quick schemes or magic mail pieces. It's about leadership, systems, decision making, the stuff that you just happen to figure out after your third or fourth pricing mistake, or maybe just your first. This deal looks great on paper, got a moment. Well, tune in with me today, my friends, and let's dive right in.
You're listening to the RE Tipster Podcast Network.
Okay, so quick question for you. Have you heard of our school community? I just want to make sure to invite you to check that out. If you're listening to this episode, it's actually kind of old, to be honest with you. And so if you want our latest, if you want our greatest content we're putting out, real conversations about leadership, decision-making, building a land business that actually works in the real world, get inside our school community where you get access to the free leadership course, plus bonus episodes, discussions, and insights that honestly just don't make it onto the podcast. So if you're serious about this, you want to learn more about leadership, get in the community, check it out, leadershipinland.com or school.com/leadershipinland. All right, let's get in the episode. Hey friends, today I want to talk a bit about a book that my friend Brian McCarthy recommended. Brian is probably one of the best land investors I know out there. He has a great business. I really respect his hiring abilities. And when he said, hey, you should check this out, I was like, okay, let's check it out. So this book right here is called Who. It's by Geoff Smart and Randy Street. And honestly, I wish I probably would have read this book sooner. In the land business, we all know, especially when you're newer, you really think your biggest problem is a what. What market should I mail? What county should I be in? What should my offer price be? What CRM should I use? Right? You get an idea. What should I say to sellers? What should I list the property for? All those are real questions, and I'm not here to minimize them, but the bigger you get, my friends, the more you realize something. Most of your business problems eventually are one thing. People problems. Who is answering the phone? Who is following up with sellers? Who is comping the property? Who is talking to the county? Who is ordering title? And so on and so on and so on. Whether posting the property, following up with buyers, right? These are things that for most of us, and especially myself, we don't want to have to keep on doing all of these things ourselves. We want help. And so that's why the title of the book is so good. It's not called What, it's called Who. The basic premise being that business owners spend a ton of time on strategy, on systems, products, pricing, processes, but ultimately the people you put into your business are the ones who actually make those decisions happen. Now, the authors make a point early in this book that who decisions are some of the most important decisions we make as business owners. I would say that's probably a good introduction really to chapter one. For land investors, I know that hits us hard. A lot of us start as solo operators. We do everything. We pull the list, we price the mailer, we answer calls, we negotiate, we do title, we sell the property, we collect payments, right? We do all of it. But eventually, like I was just saying, if you want a real business and not just another job, you have to hand pieces of that machine off to other people. And that's where we all know the wheels can come off, right? You can have a great marketing campaign and you can lose deals because the person answering the phone sounds bored, chooses not to answer, has a bad day, whatever. You can have a great acquisition opportunity and you can miss it because nobody follows up. You can have a great property and you can lose money because the pricing person they missed, you know how it goes, access, slope, wetlands, flood zones, utilities, you name it, right? You can have a great buyer and blow the sale because no one keeps the transaction moving. So the first big idea from the book is this. Hiring is not a side project. Hiring is one of the most important skills of an owner. And I don't know about for you, but for me, it feels like such a messy process. And what I like about this book, it really lays out a process for us that they call the A method for hiring. There's 4 pieces to it: scorecard, source, select, and sell. Now, I would mark this as within the book. Anyhow, let's walk through these 4 ideas and then apply them to a small land business. The first being the scorecard. This might be, honestly, my favorite part of the book. The authors here really make a distinction between a job description, which is really good to have, and a scorecard. What does a job description do? It usually says what someone will do. A scorecard, meanwhile, says here's what success actually looks like. Huge difference, my friends. For example, a bad job description might say, we are hiring acquisitions manager. Responsibilities include calling sellers, following up with leads, negotiating contracts, updating CRM. And all that sounds fine, but it's too vague. A scorecard, meanwhile, says something like, the missions of the acquisitions manager is to turn qualified seller leads into profitable signed purchase agreements while maintaining professional seller communication and accurate CRM records. And then most importantly, you're defining the outcomes, right? So number one, respond to all new seller leads within one business day. Number two, maintain follow-up cadence on all warm, hot, and red hot leads. Maybe you even put, here's the number of leads you should be following up with on a daily basis. Number three, generate X number of signed contracts a month. So now you're putting specific numbers to here are the expectations of what you're supposed to do on the scorecard. Number four, keep their CRM notes clean so that another team member can step in and understand the status of it. Number five, protect the company from bad deals by flagging access, title, zoning, taxes, or pricing concern. That's so much better, right, than just saying call sellers. And I believe this applies to almost every seat in the land business, whether you're talking about a general VA or a pricing analyst or a TC, a transaction coordinator. It's hard with some of these roles as we think about what are the specific numbers you can track. For a dispo person, could be the number of buyer conversations, listings posted, property visits scheduled, yada, yada, yada. So certainly there's a lot of different things we can track. Some roles are easier to track than others. Some are more difficult. But in all cases, you should be able to put something to it. And this is where I think this book is incredibly practical for land investors. Let's be honest. Most of us hire too casually. We say, I need help with admin, or I need someone to answer calls, or I just want to get this off my plate. You over there, you take care of it. But we haven't clearly decided what winning really looks like. What does winning look like? The authors say that the scorecard, it should include missions, outcomes, competencies. And I believe that's chapter 2. Now, as we think about all of us, for all of our listeners here to Leadership in Land, I want to challenge everyone, before you look to hire your next role, build a scorecard for it. Not after you post the job, not after you interview people, before. What does this person need to accomplish in the first 90 days that now it can look like a success? Beyond that, what does a first great year look like? So if someone's going to have a first great year, what does that look like? What mistakes would make this hire a failure? What behaviors matter in your company? Do they need to be detail-oriented? Do they need to be comfortable with rejection? Do they need to be great with people, calm with sellers? Do they need to be fast? Do they need to be slow? Do they need to be accurate? Do they need to be proactive? Do they need to be able to work through the ambiguity that we know that happens? These questions, my friend, matter. That's the first tool, right? Second tool, source. So building a flow of candidates before you desperately need somebody. So I think that's another thing for land investors and even for us. Most of us hire when we're in pain, when someone has been let go. And then you're juggling all these responsibilities. The phone's still ringing. The CRM's a mess. Deals are falling through. We're behind on posting. Help. Let me hire someone. And so we panic. And so what the book is saying is that great hiring starts with consistent sourcing. In other words, you should always be building a bench. You should always be generating a flow of A players. Now, certainly, this is hard to do for a small business like us. I think one of the best things that you can do is, number one, have an intern program. It doesn't need to cost a lot of money, but it helps you to identify talent, and you're not having to pay them a whole lot for domestic help. So that's one great thing to think about, whether you're looking at acquisition managers or someone like that. Hey, maybe they could help with cold calling. Maybe you could really test their mettle to see, hey, is this the right person? Now, another hint that they say and they really emphasize here is who is the best person you've ever worked with, the best virtual assistant that you've worked with. You can ask that of other land investors. You can ask your current staff. You can ask a title company. Who are the best transaction coordinators that you've seen? You can ask your realtor. Do you know anyone who is great with rural land buyers? So whether it's your team, realtors, the people that you're already interacting with to build that bench, who is the best person you know that might be a fit for our company someday? So this way you can turn your network into a talent sourcing engine. And I do think this is especially important in the land business because the best hires may or may not have land investing experience. It could be a former real estate assistant. It could be someone from title. It could be a stay-at-home parent who's organized. It could be someone from customer service. It could be a sharp VA who has never touched land but is reliable and they're hungry. Sometimes it may be someone already in your community who understands the business and wants to give a shot. The key, my friends, is to stop waiting until you're desperate. Something for myself to work on here. Third tool. So we talk about the first two. Third tool being select. This is the actual interview process. So now that you have the bench, right, you have a scorecard, they say, be careful of voodoo hiring based on gut feel, charm, random interview questions, trick questions, personality tests by themselves, casual conversations. So be aware of that. And I've been guilty of doing that, no doubt. You have one good conversation with someone, they sound sharp, you need the help, they sound nice. You're like, I like this person. So you go and hire them, right? I could see them being a good fit. In my gut, oh, this is the right person to do. Liking someone is not the same as whether or not they can do the job. This can be dangerous, my friends. Whether we're talking a lead manager or pricing, dispo, all of these people, some people, let's be honest, they can just interview well. They're like professional interviewers. Book recommends structuring interviews. They have like this whole big fat list, a screening interview, a deeper career history interview, focus interviews around the scorecard, reference interviews, so on and so on and so on, for ways of spotting A players. And I feel like they say, go through a whole day of interviewing people, passing around multiple people. And I feel like for small businesses like ours, that's probably overkill. I feel like their target market of who they're talking with in the book are like big companies that they're hiring for C-suite or a high-level manager or something like that, which if you end up hiring for a C-suite, I think that makes a lot of sense, right? This is someone you're going to be paying $150,000 or more a year to. Heck yeah, put them through the ringer. But if you're talking international VA that is going to be a lead manager, I don't think you need a whole day of interviews to do that. But having structure is good. Having 2 or 3 interviews is a good idea. Common things that we try and do is, of course, go through the interviews. You'll have some basic questions that you're kind of testing people on to see, can they make it to the next step in the process? Maybe there's a quick 30-minute interview with a lower level person that they do. And then maybe there's a 1-hour interview, or maybe 2 separate 1-hour interviews with someone else on your team and yourself. So I think a 3-step interview at max, maybe 2-step interview, I think is fine. So anywho, the next thing as you think about interviews, as you think about scorecards, really asking good questions, behavior-based questions. So an example we could think of for us might be for an acquisitions person. Tell me about a time you had to follow up with someone for weeks or months before getting a result. Another example could be, tell me about a time you had to negotiate. Tell me about a time you had to deal with an upset customer. Tell me about a time you lost a deal and why. So real scenario type stuff, again, as best you can. There's not a perfect process here, but this helps to sniff it out. For a pricing person, give them a real property, ask them to comp it, right? Don't just give them a job, give them an opportunity to prove themselves first. For a transaction coordinator, give them a closing scenario, ask them how they would organize steps. For a VA, give them a data cleanup project. For a dispo person, ask them to write a buyer follow-up message or something like that. The key is do not just interview for theory, give them work that actually looks like the actual work. Now, one of the other things that, again, I'm just as guilty of as anyone else is references, reference checks. Most of us skip references or we treat them as a formality. And this book really pushes hard on it. And I think that's wise. You really want to verify patterns. The big question being, would this person's former manager enthusiastically hire them again? Were they reliable? How did they take feedback? Did they finish what they started? Were they proactive? Where did they struggle? We all know in a small business like ours, one bad hire creates a lot of drag. It may not cost you $1.5 million, but it can cost you time, leads, deals, team morale, seller relationships, and months of having to retrain somebody else, right? That time component is huge. All right. Fourth tool, sell. And they really emphasize this because great people have options. A lot of us think it's about us, but in fact, the book makes a great point that once you find someone awesome, you have to sell them on joining you. And so, Mark, definitely check out that chapter on selling. I think for land investors, this is where we need to be honest. We're not Google. We're not Fortune 500 companies. We may not have the biggest salary, the fanciest benefits, the most impressive office. So what do we sell to people? Opportunity, upside, flexibility, direct access to the owner, learning. So many big companies, people get put in a hole and they're not learning new things. Meaningful responsibility, the chance to grow, stuff like that. So we sell a business where someone's work actually matters and they have the opportunity to get all kinds of experience. But we have to be careful, of course, well, not to oversell either. Don't promise a career path that doesn't exist. Don't promise unlimited upside if you don't have the compensation available. Don't promise flexibility and then get annoyed when people use it. Don't sell a family culture as a substitute for clear expectations. So all of that is really alignment. What do they want? What do we need? How can we meet in the middle between this stuff? Now, I think, let me talk a little bit about what I think does not fully apply from this book. First, I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's very executive heavy. There's lots of examples involving CEOs, PE firms, billionaires, boards. All that's cool, but that's not what we do. We're not hiring a CEO of $1 billion company. We're hiring acquisition managers, pricing analysts, TCs, salespeople, marketing assistants, yada, yada, yada. This principle applies, but again, be right sized, as I mentioned earlier. Second, the full interview process is just ridiculous of what they describe. So be aware of that. You don't need to do a day-long set of interviews like they say there. That's just kind of dumb. I think third is really that definition of A player. In the book, an A player is not just a superstar, it's someone who has a high probability of achieving the outcomes for that specific role. An A player for seller follow-up may not be an A player for pricing. An A player for transaction coordinators may not be an A player for sales. An A player in corporate environments may not like the ambiguity of a small entrepreneurial company. So we don't want to hire impressive people. We want to hire the right person for the right seat at the right stage of your business. Fourth, we have to balance excellence with trainability. It really focuses hard on hiring A players, which is awesome and great. But in a small business where cash is tight, let's be real about this. You can't hire everybody to be fully formed. Sometimes we're hiring for raw material. Sometimes we're hiring for hunger. Sometimes we're hiring for humility, intelligence, follow through. That's okay. But let's be honest with ourselves. If you're hiring someone who needs training, then your business needs to have the systems, SOPs, scorecards, so on and so on and so on. So here's my practical takeaways as we wrap this up today, my friends. Number one, write a one-page scorecard. Mission, outcomes, competencies, stuff like that. Number two, build a candidate bench before you're desperate. Ask your network, ask your team, ask your vendors, ask your community for great people. Number three, stop hiring from gut feel. Structured questions, real world examples, references. Number four, right size the hiring process to the role. So ignore a lot of what they say in this book for that. Number five, sell the opportunity honestly, but do sell it. People want clarity, growth, flexibility, ownership, and to be a leader. Number six, every operational bottleneck probably has a who underneath it. If seller leads aren't converting, who owns the follow-up? If deals are not closing, who owns the transaction management? If properties aren't selling, who helped with buying it, as well as who owns the dispo? If pricing is off, who owns comping? Overall, my friends, if you are feeling overwhelmed on who needs to be hired, trained, promoted, or moved out of the wrong seat, this is why I think this book, Who, is definitely a worthwhile read. It's not perfect for small businesses. You have to adapt it, but the core idea is dead on, my friends. At some point, your business will stop growing because of the people problem. Not because there's no deals, not because there's no buyers, not because there's no software. It's because us. The buck stops with us. We're still carrying too many seats, or the wrong person is in the wrong seat. So my challenge for you this week is simple. Pick one role in your business. Maybe it's a role you already have. Maybe it's the next role you need to hire. Write the scorecard. What's the mission? What's the outcome? What are the competencies? Do I have the right who for this seat? Because in land, just like every business, you are who you hire. All right, my friends, check out the book. Enjoy. Let me know if you have any book recommendations. I would love to hear from you. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, well, that wraps up today's episode. If this was helpful, don't just let it live in your head. Take one idea from today and actually put it in practice. That, my friends, is where the real progress happens. If you want to check out and keep the conversation going with other land investors like you want to make sure to check out a whole bunch of free resources and talk about challenges that we all go through. Please come and check out our Leadership in Land community on School. We've got bonus content, real discussions, and a free leadership course. No hype required at all. Just check out leadershipinland.com or go to school, that's SKOOL.com/leadershipinland. Appreciate you being here. Talk soon.